America needs a tidal wave of the old-time religion.
I have sinned against you.
How dare you!
We have no need to doubt God.
The harlot Babylon is preparing the nations to receive the Antichrist.
I didn't even build that house with money from the church. I built it with money from my book.
I don't make this stuff up.
Repenting of your sin.
It is a moral issue.
They got together and swore a pact to the devil.
I just enjoy seeing people worship, praising God.
Hey everybody,
and welcome to
Believe It
or Not.
Or Not. Hey everybody, I'm Trevor Poelman.
And I'm Damien Doepping, and this is a show where we believe it.
Or do we?
Most often not.
Yeah. Well, how was your day?
It's been just gravy today.
Good.
Bright, sunshiny day. I haven't left the house yet.
Nice. I only left the house to come here, so I guess
that's fair. Yeah.
Boat.
Yeah. Well, you said you have a bum shoulder.
Yeah, my shoulder is killing me. So I
man.
got barely any sleep last night.
Too much baseball?
Too much baseball, yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I went out to a park last night, hung out with my buddy Dave. You know Dave?
Oh, yeah.
So that was fun.
Oh, I know what it
first,
was
like,
then.
social thing.
He probably kept like hitting you in the shoulder saying, you know what I mean, Trev? You know what I mean, Trev? He does that a lot.
He does that, yeah.
So.
He punches people in the shoulder and says, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're not here to talk about Dave punching people in the arm.
No, I didn't think we were.
We're here to talk about Jesus.
Punching people in the arm.
Punching people in the arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. More specifically, something called the Jesus Seminar.
He had was this like his master class?
Basically, it was Jesus' master class. Yeah, the Jesus Seminar was something that made evangelical Christians so angry in the 80s and 90s. They were so angry that there was this group trying to destroy Christianity and trying to make Jesus whatever they want that Jesus to be instead of reading the Bible. And
is this like where the whole personal Jesus thing kind of came into it? Is that what this is, or is this...
It's more trying to find the historical Jesus, trying to figure out what the historical Jesus was. So it was this organization started in 1985 by a guy named Robert Funk called the Jesus Seminar. There was about 50 New Testament scholars and people who studied the New Testament who got together, and I think they would get together twice a year and discuss the sayings of Jesus and tried to discover what were most likely to actually have been said by Jesus. Right. And what were more likely to have been said later by other people pushing an agenda.
I'm going to say more likely none of it was said by Jesus.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I don't know.
Yeah, because So the canon as we know it right now, you know, the earliest book is written, at like 60 AD, and then 100, and then later, and then they rewrite it, and then they come up with a canon, and then they revamp that canon, and then, so there's been a lot of changes, like monk will write something in the margin as he's typing, like, oh, this is what I think about that, and then another monk will like rewrite it, and that thing he wrote in the margins becomes something Jesus said, and it's just a mess. So they were trying to say, like, okay, we'll go through, and we're all scholars, and we'll figure out who the historical Jesus was.
Well, this is kind of like a relevant thing in the news recently.
Yeah.
People are up in arms about J.K. Rowling going back and saying that this is what this was, and there's like, no, you're changing it after the fact. They did it with the Bible so many times, nobody bats an eye.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, come on,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of those Bible people who are saying this didn't like Harry Potter to begin with.
Yeah, it's
they
true.
thought it was Satan, so... I don't know if it really works, but...
Yeah, and to be fair, J.K. Rowling's a TERF who can go fuck herself.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But, so it started in 85. It got a lot of media attention in the 90s. I think Time Magazine has always liked having stories about Jesus on the cover.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to sell magazines, right?
So they did a story about them in 96, kind of the front page of Time.
I feel like Jesus is the... cover guy for Time magazine, like Oprah is the cover person for Oprah magazine.
Yeah.
Oprah magazine.
Yeah. Did you hear first time Oprah wasn't on the cover was recently? Brianna Taylor.
Has she been on every
cover? Yeah.
Every cover? Wow.
Yeah. That's vanity right there.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about the evils of Oprah on this show before.
And we will do a full episode on her soon. Yeah, so they kind of, different scholars from different like fields of study, but all kind of around the New Testament. There's also been some controversy over whether some of them could be considered scholars. Right. And then eventually they also let other people kind of watch and kind of participate in other ways, but weren't part of the core group. The main thing is Jesus was a mortal man. He wasn't God. He didn't come back from the dead. He didn't do miracles. We're just trying to figure out what words he said.
Right.
So, but they were also biblical scholars who believed that some of it was, there was a historical Jesus that this came from. We want to go through and find it. How much do you know about the Gospels and how they were kind of formed?
Not a whole lot. Well, okay, I don't know if I'm even saying the right bits of it, but I know like after Jesus died, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say. Was it John or one of them? They like founded the church and started writing shit, and then more and more stuff kind of got added over the next like couple hundred years as things happened.
Yeah, basically. Well, Paul was kind of the guy who.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, and then but the Gospels,
whatever Beetle it was.
Yeah. So there's 4 Gospels in the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The first 3 are considered the Synoptic Gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because Luke was written first. And then there's this other gospel they say existed at the time called Q. That's like just what they're calling it. It's different than QAnon. But that's kind of what scholars call it, because there's things in Matthew and Mark that are definitely taken from Mark, but they also seem to be taken from another book. So they
why do they call it Q then?
I don't know. It's just like kind of, they don't know what it's called. So that's just been kind of the placeholder name.
Right.
That, it hasn't been discovered. And then John was definitely written last, and it's the least historically accurate, probably, according to them, and definitely the one that it's written for a purpose. Like, it's written to prove a point. It's not written to be a historical record. Right. I mean, the other ones also, there's huge holes, and they're not written. They're like, but they're like, oh yeah, but these have more things that people probably heard him say, and then the other stuff like the resurrection and the virgin birth and stuff would have been added afterwards. Yeah. Right. But then there's also the Gospel of Thomas. Have you heard of the Gospel of Thomas?
No.
Okay, so it was discovered in the 1950s in Egypt, and it was kind of an earlier one as well, and it's more a collection of sayings that Jesus said.
This wasn't one of the like the Dead Sea Scroll kind of things, was it?
No, it wasn't one of those, but it was kind of the same type of discovery.
Idea.
Yeah. And I think Da Vinci Code used it a bit, talked about it a lot.
They might have.
Yeah, I haven't seen Da Vinci Code or read it.
I read it in high school, or maybe even earlier. I don't remember when it came out, but it's been a while.
Yeah, and it was, but they consider it more accurate than the Gospel of John. So the Jesus Seminar would take the 3 synoptic Gospels and the Book of Thomas, the Gospel according to Thomas, and kind of sparse out between those ones what they thought were the true words of God.
Yeah, true Jesus.
True Jesus, which, like I said earlier, just made people so mad.
Right.
Especially like apologetics and so basically, one thing they would do is they took all the sayings of Christ and put them into modern language. They were trying to read it as it would have been read at the time. They also studied what life was like in first century Palestine and tried to bring it as closely to something that they would have said at the time. And they did things like, if it's a short saying, it's more likely that people are going to quote it. But if it's this giant speech, people aren't going to orally remember it exactly years later. So
it's kind of like No Fear Shakespeare in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They give you the rough outline. This is what we're trying to convey, but also keeping it in a modern kind of context. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So they had what they called their 7 pillars of scholarly wisdom. Mm-hmm. Number 1, distinguishing between the historical Jesus and the stories that the Gospels tell about him. Number 2, distinguishing between the Synoptics and John. Usually saying that the Synoptic Gospels are probably more accurate.
Right.
John is where you get like John 3:16. Like which is basically the call to be a Christian, like to join this religion, right?
Yeah.
For God to love the world that he gave his only begotten son, whosoever believes in him. It's like the whole, this is...
It's like we need a slogan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it starts off very like where the other, either Mark starts off basically at the beginning of his ministry and the other two start off when Jesus is born. John starts off at the beginning of time and says that Jesus was there, and then it goes on and like it's a lot more poetic too.
So is Jesus then a time traveler?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's outside of time.
Wow.
Yeah. Number 3, identifying Mark as the first gospel. 4, identifying the hypothetical Q document. Number 5, questioning eschatology. I always struggle with this word. Questioning. I'm like Trump trying to say Yosemite. Eschatological or apocalyptic Jesus. So basically, there's a
how's it spelled? Which one?
Number 5.
Number 5. Hypothetical Q document.
Oh, sorry. 5 there.
5. Oh, sorry. I was looking at 4. Eschatological.
That's it. Eschatological. Thank you, Damien. We are not experts. We just Google this stuff. So basically, there's a lot that Jesus said about the end of the world, his return, which they said was something that was added later. So they got rid of all that. That is the most controversial part for a lot of scholars, because that's when they're saying, see, obviously you're just trying to create the Jesus you want. You're not trying to find the historical Jesus. You don't agree with the apocalypse stuff, so you're just saying, nope, that stuff.
That's such a weak argument, though, for that. That's like saying that by trying to find the real one, you're just disproving this apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
I think it just sounds like some sour grapes of people are like, we spent our whole life in fear of an apocalypse and waiting for the salvation where all the sinners are going to die and will be called up to heaven. But you're saying, well, it's not real.
Yeah.
Jesus might have been, but this isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 6, distinguishing between oral and print cultures. Since Jesus lived and preached in oral culture, scholars expect that short, memorable stories or phrases are more likely to be historical.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Reversing the burden of proof. In his day, Strauss had to offer evidence to question the historicity of any part of the Gospels because his audience assumed that the Gospels were historical. Today, the assumption is nearly the opposite, with the Gospels understood to be so thoroughly embellished that one needs evidence to suppose that anything in them is historical.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. Like, I think that's why you have mythicists now, or like people who say that Jesus never existed, because so much of what we have about Jesus just is so obviously either changed or just completely made up, or and I'm kind of on the field of like, if Jesus did exist, he's such a different person than the person in the books that we have no idea who he was.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like it's probably pretty likely that there wasn't, but if for whatever reason there was, it has nothing to do with anything that was ever written about him.
Yeah, that'd be like...
It'd be like if in 1,000 years they said Colin was Jesus.
Yeah, because he looks like Jesus and has a gorgeous beard like Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's not.
He's not. Colin Morey is not Jesus Christ.
No, he doesn't turn water into wine.
Yeah.
He turns the water on for the pressure washer at work.
Colin is a friend of ours, so none of you will get this, but we love it. So
I thought we'd talked about him before, maybe. I thought it was relevant.
I feel like we talked about him on our first episode when we said he was a sinner because he has premarital sex.
Yeah,
so.
He is a sinner too. So, I mean, but wasn't Jesus a sinner?
That's true. Well, was he? No. Without sin. That's why he could die for us.
But was he though?
Probably not.
Because he hung out with all the sin people.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And he was doing more than just hanging out.
You know the way they would do this. How would they decide what Jesus said, what Jesus didn't say? Beads, you're probably saying. I bet they use beads.
What do you mean beads?
Beads, like beads. Different colored beads is what they would use to vote.
What?
Yeah. So basically what they'd go through is they'd go through a saying of Jesus, and then all the scholars would put in a bead. Red beads indicated that the voter believed Jesus did say the passage quoted or something very much like the passage. Pink beads indicated that the voter believed Jesus probably said something like the passage. Gray beads indicated the voter believed Jesus did not say the passage, but it contains Jesus' ideas. And black beads indicate the voter believed Jesus did not say the passage. It comes from later admirers or a different tradition.
Okay, well, the bead thing is not as outlandish as you made it seem at first.
No.
There was a method.
There was a method.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I get why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it is necessarily accurate. However, it's an interpretation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And they're using like a consensus rather than just being like one guy.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't just have magic beads that they threw on the floor
No,
and said, well, that one was Jesus, this one was
That
not.
would have been great. They're all about like he was a real person. We want to find the history, and then it's just like roll the beads.
Well, they put every page of the Bible on a floor in a gymnasium, and then they dump the beads from the top. And where the beads lie, that's what Jesus said.
Yeah. It's really not really a bad voting system. It's just seems kind of weird that like these scholars are just playing with beads and like
scholars do weirder things.
That's true. That's really true. So they had some criteria for the authenticity of a quote, of a saying. The orality, according to current estimates, the Gospels weren't written until decades after Jesus' death.
Yep.
Yeah, that goes back to the little sayings and stuff like turn the other cheek, probably more likely than a full, long parable that Jesus told being word for word what he said. Where it's probably like maybe he told some stories and then they get passed down and, you know, like, I don't know if your parents are storytellers, but my dad was a huge storyteller.
Right.
But every time he told it, something would change. One detail would change.
Yeah. That's pretty common, right?
Yeah. Irony is the other method.
Was Jesus ironic?
Yeah. Well, like things like the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Mm-hmm.
That's irony because people, you know, at the time thought that Samaritans were awful people, but he showed that, you know, that they can be good. It's how you treat each other, not who you are.
Right.
But what was that? Was that what show was it? Some sketch show where they're like, I got a story. It's about a Samaritan, but get this, he's good. And they're like, Jesus, we have friends who are Samaritans. What are you saying? Are you saying that like...
He's implying that they're bad?
Yeah.
No, we don't think they are.
But this is a good Samaritan. Yeah, okay. Because you know how they're normally bad. Jesus.
That's pretty racist of Jesus.
And then the third one is trust in God. Long discord attests in 3 Gospels. The 3 Gospels has Jesus telling his listeners not to fret, but to trust in the Father. So that's why there's such a big theme about Jesus telling people to trust God and not to worry. That's another reason why they discount all the apocalypse stuff, where it's like he's not going to have most of his ministry be like, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And then the other part be like, everything's going to end and it's going to be over for you. So that's another reason why they believe that.
I mean, that's a pretty good reason, I would think.
Yeah.
Where everything's saying, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then you're like, you know what, maybe you should worry about it because I'm going to kill everyone and everything.
Yeah, exactly. There was some criteria for inauthenticity. Self-reliance. Does the text have Jesus referring to himself? So they say that that's probably an inaccurate thing where he's just like telling like, hey, this is who I am.
Right.
Because it's more, that's probably going to be like the writer's.
I don't know. It sounds like he's a cool like English teacher.
That's true.
This is who I am. This is what I'm about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sitting down with the chair backwards. Right.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. That's really cool when somebody sits with the chair backwards.
Did you get your faith back when I brought that up?
Yeah, I did.
I thought so.
Framing material. The verse uses to introduce, explain, or frame other materials, which might itself be authentic. Setting up a story. It's probably not. It's probably just like it's a writing method, like him, like this happened, so Jesus told this story. And it's probably like that event probably didn't happen. It's just an opportunity to tell that story.
Yeah.
Community issues. Do the verses refer to concerns of the early Christians communities, such as instructions for missionaries or issues of leadership? For example, Peter, the rock of the church. So basically, Jesus is setting up Peter to be the leader of the church. Mm-hmm. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe that was Peter saying. Like,
Peter just was looking for an excuse to become the leader of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like.
And then a theological agenda. So But I feel like Jesus kind of had a theological agenda.
I feel like the whole thing was a theological agenda.
But you find that each of the Gospels have a different theological agenda. Like, Mark's going to be, Jesus came for the Jews, and then Matthew's going to be like, no, he came for the Gentile, and then John is like, this is like, there's a whole spiritual thing. It's like...
No one can make up their mind who it's for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then they decided on the acts, not just the sayings of Christ, but eventually they decided on what Jesus would have done. And they said Jesus of Nazareth was born during the reign of Great Herod, so they decided that. I don't know how they decided that, because there's two different stories about that, and one he doesn't, one he does.
What's the time difference as far as that goes?
I think there's like 6 years.
Okay, so it's not a huge difference.
Yeah. Jesus was born in Nazareth, not in Bethlehem.
Right.
Jesus was an itinerant sage who shared meals with social outcasts. So, he was just a nice guy. So that probably wasn't the miracle of the 5,000, but he probably did share food, I guess.
Yeah.
Jesus practiced faith healing without the use of ancient medicine or magic. Revealing afflictions were now considered psychosomatic. Oh, yeah. So, like, Jesus did practice faith healing, but wasn't an actual miracle worker.
No, he was a placebo man.
Yeah. He did not walk on water, feed the multitudes, change water to wine, or raise Lazarus from the dead. Jesus was arrested in Jerusalem and crucified by the Romans. He was executed as a public nuisance, not for claiming to be the Son of God. The empty tomb is fictional, and belief in the resurrection is based on Paul, Peter, and Mary, like telling stories.
Yeah.
So Christians aren't going to like... A lot of evangelical Christians are not going to like this. There's probably some circles that find value in this. They wrote a lot of books, like Discovering the New Jesus, and got a lot of media attention. I think they were trying to do something interesting and something scholarly, but I think there's a lot of holes.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it feels like it's just opinion.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of this kind of stuff ends up kind of having to be.
Yeah. And I think...
It's a lot of guesswork.
Yeah, because a lot of other New Testament scholars had strong criticisms about only including kind of their people with their perspective, people with their background in the field of study, only from like a handful of schools, so like Harvard and a couple other Ivy League schools. But,
so only the good schools.
Yeah. And then, and of course, Christians were up in arms, like William Lane Craig, probably still talking about how much he hates them.
Right.
So Funk, the founder, Robert Funk, died in 2005, and the organization kind of stopped after that. It hasn't officially disbanded. It's still technically a group, but they
don't really do anything.
Yeah, they haven't met since he died. So, what are your thoughts on the Jesus Seminar?
I think it's an interesting experiment and look at what the Bible is and what it's saying.
Yeah,
I think it's an important thing for people to do. Is to examine these things and figure out what is potentially real and what's most likely not.
Yeah.
Again, it does just feel like it's all guesswork.
Yeah.
I mean, more likely than not, probably none of it's real.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, you can't really definitively prove that one way or the other.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be mad about it no matter what you say.
Yeah, it's true.
So.
And whether it's true or not, I guess it's a good way to dissect the text and look at and try to find like other interesting things within the text. And I think that's always good, especially like with an old text like this. It's kind of good to re-examine it with new eyes.
It's so hard to make any definitive statements about these kind of things. This is over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like 2,000 years ago,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So, like, what do you, like, how?
Yeah.
I mean, when people are still debating about whether Shakespeare was written by him or things like that too. I mean, and that's a little more recent. Yeah. There's things. It's tricky.
It's tricky. Yeah, I have a Bible quiz. Speaking of the Bible,
where's our Bible?
Where's our Bible?
Where's our goddamn Bible? We don't have a Bible in here. Why don't we have a Bible? We never have.
It's a bar.
So I was thinking, who would be a modern day version of Christ Jesus?
Christ Jesus?
Jesus the Christ, the Messiah.
Who's Christ Jesus?
Who's a modern day version of him? And of course, Say it with me. Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd agree with that. He would be modern Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of the Toy Story movies?
Because of the Toy Story movies.
Right.
So I thought I'd make a quiz of, is this a Tom Hanks character saying this?
Right.
Or is this Jesus Christ?
All right. Let's see if I can remember my Tom Hanks movie knowledge.
We live and we die by time, and we must not commit the sin of turning our back on time.
This feels like a bad movie quote. I'm going to say Tom Hanks.
Yeah, it was from Castaway.
All right.
Do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself.
Jesus?
Yeah, that was Jesus.
Yeah.
Some people don't think miracles happen. Well, they do.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
I came to cast fire on the earth and would that it were already kindled.
Jesus.
Yep. There's no one in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are.
That's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, and a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
That'd be a really funny Jesus quote.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably win over a lot of people with it.
I think so. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored?
Jesus?
That's a Jesus
They
quote.
loved salt.
They
back
loved
then.
it. Do you not see whatever goes in the mouth passes into the stomach and is expelled?
Jesus?
Yeah, that's Jesus.
Okay.
Women then are a huge threat to the church.
Jesus.
And it's Tom Hanks from the Da Vinci Code.
Okay, I had a feeling
Yeah.
it could have been, but that's a weird line.
Yeah. If things were easy to find, they wouldn't be worth finding.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, extremely loud and incredibly close. A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives and his own home.
Jesus.
Yeah. Every person matters.
Tom.
Yeah, that's from Bridge of Spies.
All right.
Yeah.
So I got one wrong.
You got one wrong.
That's not
Good
bad.
for you.
Yeah. It was the one that was in a movie that's about Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I wasn't going to use it because I haven't seen it, and then I was like, you know what?
it was a gray area.
Yeah. But, so that's the Jesus seminar. Were you angry? Were you...
Why would I be angry?
I'm asking the listener.
Oh.
Were you angry? Were you... do you feel educated? Were your parents angry in the 90s about it, and you heard about it, and it was just like kind of in the back of your head? That's how I knew about it. I knew about the beads, and I knew that it was just people trying to make their own Jesus.
See, I didn't grow up in a very religious family.
Mm-hmm.
My family never really got mad about religious stuff.
Yeah.
The only time I can really remember it was there was like one of those commercials about getting like a Bible or something like that. And I think I said something along the lines like, shut up, nobody cares. And my dad was just like, hey, they're talking about the Bible. And I was confused.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? You've never talked about the Bible. You never talked about the Jesus.
Yeah.
This means nothing. Why are you mad at me about it? And the other time that happened was when during the Tarzan movie, and it was like one of the things where they're talking about Phil Collins doing the thing, and I was like, who cares? Nobody knows who that guy is. And then my dad got mad at me because I made fun of Genesis. So those are two moments that I can think of my parents getting mad at me for these things.
Yeah. And Genesis from the Bible or Phil Collins?
Phil Collins. But it's
still,
related.
Yeah.
And I feel those two memories are linked in my mind for some reason.
No, that makes sense. I have two memories like that where I just got like yelled at from the other room for saying something stupid. Like one time I was playing with my brothers when we were young, and I had a sheet over me, and I was like, I'm a ghost. And my brother's like, ghosts don't look like that. And I was like, I'm a little boy who suffocated in his bed. I just hear my mom going, Trevor.
Oh, I got that all the time.
Yeah.
So that's different. This was like weird anger.
Yeah.
That I was like confused by.
Yeah.
So
tune in next week to find out what the other thing I got yelled at from the other room is. Rate us on iTunes.
I don't know if we want to know, really.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Work, Sky Moon.
Some people think miracles happen. Some people think third time's a charm.